Hello, everybody. This is Kxo Radio AM 1230, once again with a weary traveler, Mickey Dale, back from his trip to Kansas. And we're going to give you the high school football preview and recap of this week and last week. Hello, Mickey.
Right,
Welcome back.
a lot of football that we got to see back in Kansas. We saw our one of our grandsons, our oldest grandson, back there, played on Monday night a JV game in Greensburg, uh, Kansas, which was pretty much destroyed by a tornado back in '07, and they're finally getting it rebuilt completely. And we also saw one of our other grandsons recover a fumble on a kickoff in a game in Mineola on Saturday. We saw a varsity game in Spearville last Friday, and it all opened up with a junior high school game that I did the spotting for my son who was doing the PA that night. And so we saw a lot of football while we were back there visiting with our kids and grandkids, and now we're back, and it's time for some more football out here.
Well,
It was
welcome
a big
back.
weekend, and yeah, well, thank you very much. We got a big weekend game coming up here on Friday night as the Imperial Tigers play host to the Brawley Wildcats in a big game that has a lot of the title aspirations for each team in the balance, with both teams coming in 2-0. We'll talk about that in just a little bit, but recapping the games from a week ago, the Central Spartans scored all their points in the first half against Calexico and stayed in the IVL race with a 35-0 home victory over the Bulldogs, a game that was heard last Friday on KXO Radio. Nico Viesca rushed for 85 yards and scored his 13th rushing touchdown of the season to lead the Spartans. Joshua Garcia added 74 yards on the ground and caught a pair of scoring passes, one from 36 yards out, and the second one he turned a screen pass into a 46-yard touchdown. Quarterback Luis Jimenez passed for 138 yards and 3 touchdowns. Miguel Vega was responsible for the other score, and that was from 28 yards out. Angel Vasquez scored on a blocked punt recovery in the end zone for the Spartans. And for the Bulldogs, junior running back Andre Lopez rushed for 144 yards in that ball game on 18 carries to lead the Bulldogs. Luis Vasquez led the defense with a pair of sacks, with Leonel Canchola, Julian York, and Ayan Perez also adding sacks for the Bulldogs in that game. Now the 7-2 Spartans will have this week off. They'll prepare for the Big Bell game next week against the Brawley Wildcats at Warrenfield up in Brawley. And the Bulldogs dropped to 4-4 overall, 0-3 in league, and they'll wrap up IVL action at home against Southwest on Friday, a game that Daryl Buckley and John Driffel will be calling Mike's side, that will be on kxoradio.com, and then will be posted on YouTube the next morning. So make sure you check into that. Meanwhile, Brawley quarterback Matt Gutierrez completed both his passes on the night to Damian Clemente, one from 40 yards out, led the Wildcats to a 48-0 victory over Southwest in IVL action. Gutierrez now has 19 scoring passes this season for the Wildcats. Senior Alex Valdez, junior Seth Hawkins, and sophomore Benji Limentang all had their first rushing touchdowns of the season in that ball game. Roy Rosas had a 52-yard punt return for a touchdown, and Matthew Moreno got into the scoring, returning an interception for his second pick six of the season. Now, Brawley will travel to Imperial on Friday night in a battle of IVL leaders, both teams 2-0 in league. The Tigers are unblemished at 8-0. The Wildcats just one loss, 7-1 record. That one loss to University City by just a touchdown. So that's going to be an exciting one on Friday night. And George Grijalva and I will be calling that one on KXO Radio, 1230 a.m., also on the KXO YouTube channel and on kxoradio.com. We'll tell you more about that game in just a moment. The Desert League also had some big games, especially Holtville Vincent Memorial. And in that game, the Vikings remain unbeaten at 8-0 after opening Desert League action with a 52-14 victory over Vincent Memorial. Viking quarterback Alonzo Cuevas rushed for 78 yards and scored a pair of touchdowns and threw a 24-yard scoring pass to Raul Braceno. Enrique Armas and Hector Sanchez scored a pair of touchdowns each for Holtville. Axel Gomez and Asael Miranda had interceptions to lead the Vikings defense. And for Vincent Memorial, quarterback Patricio Carranza ran for a touchdown and tossed a 46-yard scoring pass to Ricardo Vizcarra. Lucio Ascolani on defense, amazingly, was in on 21 tackles in the game to lead the Scott defense. Holtville will continue in Desert League play Thursday. They'll be hosting Palo Verde And the Scots will travel north to Calipatria to take on the Hornets Friday night. And speaking of the Hornets, they opened Desert League play with a convincing 44-24 victory over Palo Verde Valley High in Blythe last week. Juan Perez rushed for 146 yards and scored a touchdown. And Hornet quarterback Dominic Hawk added 144 yards on the ground and 3 more scores. That gives him 23 rushing touchdowns this season for Calipatria. Jordan Potter and Oscar Lopez added touchdowns as the Hornets rolled up 339 yards rushing on the ground. Lopez also recovered a fumble to help out on defense. Now, before we look at the Tigers and Wildcats game, we've got to get some congratulations they think are in order for Imperial coach David Shaw. He was named the Los Angeles Chargers Coach of the Week for Week 5 of this season. The Tigers, as you know, are 8-0 heading into this Friday's game at home against Brawley. And also congrats to Central flag football coach Crystal Cortez for Coach of the Week honors in the San Diego County region. Both coaches are the first to be selected and voted for the award from the Valley this season. So good congrats to both of them. Now, as we mentioned, Kurt, Friday's game in Imperial between the Tigers and the Brawley Wildcats will be the game of the year in IVL action so far this season. Both teams 2-0 in league. The Tigers are 8-0, the Wildcats 7-1, and the Wildcats have won 13 of the 16 meetings in IVL play against Imperial. But the Tigers' 3 wins resulted in league championships in 2011, 2013, and 2015. Interestingly, the Tigers have not beaten Brawley in Imperial during any of those contests. They were all played up in Warren Field up on the north end. So this Friday could be an epic game of a home victory for Imperial over the Brawley Wildcats, which would give them a 3-0 record in IVL play and sit on top of the league standings with 1 game to go after Friday night. So it's going to be a big game. As I mentioned, George Grijalva and I'll be calling Mike's side. We'll be on Kxo Radio 1230 a.m. if you're local. It will also be on the Kxo YouTube channel if you're anywhere else in the world, or on the internet at kxoradio.com. So we're looking forward to that game on Friday night, Kurt. It's going to be a great one.
Well, it is, and Brawley really has 2 weeks ahead of them where they're going to be taking on some powerful teams. You know, we wish them all the best of luck. You know, we want all these teams to get through these games healthy and get on to playoff action.
Right. Brawley has Imperial this week and then Central for the Bell game next week that you alluded to. So, yeah, they've got 2 big weeks that are coming up for the Wildcats, and it begins Friday night here in Imperial.
How cool is that?
All right, that's pretty great.
All right, Mickey. You know, I appreciate this update, and we're glad to have you back. And we're going to look forward to some pretty exciting games this week.
We're glad to be back and looking forward to Friday night.
All right. Take care, Mickey.
All right, thanks.